Hey guys, Chekkerz here from ClimaxCombo, and I'm taking over Leaks of the Weeks for a little while. Um, I'm a little behind by about a week since I've been pretty busy this week with school and stuff. So for this video, I'll be starting off with February 2nd through 6th, which includes Terraform Mars and one Milky Homes TD card on the Friday. But yeah, for this week, it's mostly Terraform Mars, so let's get started. Monday, we have this 00 KG, 1500 power. When another modified character is played from your hand to stage, you may look at the top card of your deck and then return that card to the original position. And a Brainstorm, pay 1, rest this card, mill the top 4. For every climax you hit, you can perform this action once for each time. Choose one card from your clock, return it to your hand, and then place the top card of your deck to your clock. So the first ability, a top check, that's nice. It's a brainstormer that can sit in the back row, and it's not just completely useless when you're not brainstorming. You still have a top check, which you can control. You can look at it. You see if it's a where am I going with this? A climax, then you know to brainstorm. Something it's like a little bit of utility from this card, which is nice to have. And the brainstorm, clock brainstorm is probably the worst plus brainstorm because you can only pick from your clock, so there's probably not going to be a big selection there. And when you have to clock yourself after taking a card, you have the potential of clocking yourself a climax, which could be pretty hard to deal with. You might not be able to get that climax out into the waiting room after that. So, clock brainstorm is kind of scary and risky sometimes, but it's still a plus brainstorm, so it's still a decent brainstorm to have in your deck. And this card's added first ability, I think it's a pretty solid card, pretty solid utility card for Terraform Mars. Next we have this 10 KG. When you have 2 or more other modified characters, this card gains plus 1k power, so it becomes 5500 base, and it has Clock Encore. So 5500 power is the standard power for costless level 1s, and having Clock just makes this card pretty decent because it's not really sacrificing power since 5500 is the standard, so you can kill certain things like certain weak level 1s that have like an effect or something, or any level 0s your opponent plays to just get some stock in. And the clock also helps, meaning that you could keep this guy around so you can generate some more stock and keep up hand size since you don't have to play more characters. And yeah, this 10 is pretty decent. I already know like next week's leaks, so compared to those, I don't think this card's that good, but on its own for green, like this is a pretty decent level 1 to have. So there's not much else to say about that. 2-1 KG, just 8500 vanilla, 1 soul. Yep, nothing to say there. So moving on to the next day for Tuesday's leaks. First off, we have this book, the first, and then we have this 1-1 Michelle that combos with it. Her first ability, this ability can only be activated once per turn. When you use an act or startup ability, this card gains 1500 power until the end of the turn, so she becomes 7500 power. And the climax combo is when she declares an attack and you have the book in your climax zone, you may pay 1, discard a card from hand to waiting room, and then choose one of your opponent's cost 0 or lower characters and place it to the bottom of your owner's deck. Then this card gains plus 1k power to the end of the turn. So she hits 7k, 8-5 if you use to start up that turn, 9-5 with the climax. So it's a pretty interesting card. She can get pretty strong on defense, like if you have a reliable way to do startups or act abilities. She can consistently be 7500 on attacking, which is a really nice number to hit for 1-1s. And the act ability also comes from backups, so on defending you can use a backup and she'll get plus 1500 power and the extra power from the backup if you used it on her. So for that part, she's pretty good. The climax combo itself, I think, is whatever, because you're kind of paying a lot to just pop a cost 1 or lower. Uh, cost 0 or lower, sorry. But it does hit back row, so that's pretty good. So like if they have a 1-0 back assist character, like off the top of my head, since Delicious Kid plays it, Love Live, you can kill the Umi. Chances are it won't be that hard to get another one, but you still can hit back row, which is probably the best way to use this, because if you're killing a cost 0 or lower, those cards tend to be weaker, so you can probably just kill those normally, since Terraformers doesn't seem to have that much of a problem with power. And all in all, I think this combo is whatever. If you end up having to use book, then it's nice to have. So like, if your opponent does happen to run a costless assist in the back, that's really good and really hard to deal with, then you can use this. You can use your ClimaxCombo. So, in some situations, it'd be pretty good. So, all in all, that makes it decent. Next, we have this 1/1 Akari, 5500 power. When your other modified characters declare an attack, this card gains plus 1k power until the end of the turn. Also, when your opponent's characters in stand go to rest, this card gains plus 1500 power until the end of the turn. So I think this card's pretty interesting. During your turn, if you have 3 characters in the front and you attack first with the other 2 and then attack last with this Akari, he becomes 7500 power, which is, like I said, a pretty decent number to hit for a 1/1. And also during your opponent's turn, when they first attack, like they have to attack, right? Then he automatically becomes 7k, which is nice to have. Not to mention, if your opponent, has a back row that they tend to rest, like let's say once again Love Live, they need to rest both their back row to get to Brainstorm. Then if your opponent has to rest both their back row, you're basically giving this Akari 3k power, so it becomes an 8/5. Not to mention the first attack, which makes him, that's 10, right? Yeah, it makes him 10k. That is insane. So this card has some potential because it can get pretty big on your opponent's turn, meaning it'll stay alive, and it hits pretty hard during your attack phase. So this card gets pretty beefy. Like all 1/1s, it's weak to level 1 Suiciders, so there's nothing you can do about that. But like depending on which set you play against, this card can potentially be pretty strong and generate you a lot of advantage. But not all sets. Like to sets that have level 1 Suiciders, it's basically gonna do nothing. Just stay alive for 1 turn and get a smacking, which at that point any other card can do. So it really just depends. I don't know how good this card will be or how playable it is, because it'll just depend on what other level 1 options Terraformers will get. So yeah, for now I think this card's pretty interesting, so I'll keep it in mind for later on. But next up, for the last card on Tuesday, we have this 1/1 Akari, 3k power. During the start of your opponent's attack phase, choose one of your modified characters. It gains 1500 power until the end of the turn. And his other ability, Pay 2. During the start of your opponent's draw phase, you may pay the stated cost. If you do, choose one of your opponent's level 2 or lower characters in stand and put it to rest. So, this card is very defensive. You can choose one of your cards to get 1500 power, so if there's something that you have weak on defense or something that's not that strong, normally you can just pump it and it'll be able to put up a bigger fight for that turn. And the next effect, the Pay 2, keep one of your opponent's stand characters to rest, is kinda because first of all, paying 2 is kinda heavy to mitigate potentially 1 attack. I mean, your opponent can just move to the back row and not attack that turn with that card and just play something else. Or, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem to do enough to merit using this card, because this card already costs 1 stock and it's only useful on defense. So yeah, I don't think this card is very good. Like, I'd rather have an assist that does some more utility, like that's not so defensive, and to give power consistently.
on your turn and enemy's turn. So I don't think this card's going to be very useful. So that's it for that card. Alright, next we have this 2k1, which combos with this 1-0 Komachi. He's 5k power, double R, the green double R. Was there another double R? I don't think so. These are all not worth double Rs. Yeah. Okay, so the green double R. When this card reverses an opponent in battle and the 2k1 is in your climax zone, you can return one card from your clock to your hand. And if you do, place the top card of your deck to the clock. So, it's like the Shimakaze from Kantai, which combos with the yellow 2k1. I believe she does have the same power, so when she reverses something, you can search a ship girl, I'm assuming, or search anything, I don't know, from your library. So, her plus is better because you get to search, but this is still a plus because the 2k1, you break even, you pump something, so this can become 7k, which, you know, can reverse certain things, and then you get to plus one card. It's only worse because it's from the clock, so like I was saying with the brainstorm, it's pretty risky because you have a chance to clock yourself a climax or clock yourself something you really don't want there, and you also have a smaller selection most of the time when you're trying to pick from your clock. So this combo I still think is good. Like, it's a plus combo, and those really help out a lot. It sucks that it is from clock, but you can still work with it. Like, it's not gonna make it that much worse. So I think this is a really good double R, and I definitely do see potential in this level 1 game right here. Moving on, we have this 1-1 Kanako, 6500 power. Discard one modified character from hand to waiting room and reveal the top card of your deck. If that card is a modified character, this card gains the following ability until the end of the turn. When this card declares an attack, you may choose one of your opponent's backstage characters. That character now becomes the defending character against this card's front attack. So she back row killer. I don't know why it took me so long to think of that. Back row killer. So it's like the Amy from Gargantia. I think it's easier to do hers because you have to reveal a modified character, and so far all of these crew members are all modified characters. So as long as you know, have a modified deck, it should always, you should be able to get this off, with the exception of revealing events and climaxes. Attacking back row, 6500 power is, you know, pretty. It's high enough to kill most back row characters, and you know, God, I'm having a hard time trying to think of what I want to say. You know, it's nice to hit back row with these kinds of characters, but especially if you can't kill something on your opponent's front row, then might as well, you know, go for back. But the cost isn't too heavy either. It's only pay one, discard a card, because you have to pay one for her, and then just discard a card to kill something in the back. It's only useful against, I'd say, assists that do a huge amount of work for your opponent. So like, I don't know if I'd use this against an Umi from Love Live, because that deck, I don't think it'd be that hard to get more, because I'm pretty sure they run a lot of those. But maybe trying to kill an assist later on in the game, like a level assist, or even Shidoe from Log Horizon. He's weak, right? He's only 3-5, correct? I should know. I have the damn deck. But yeah. So she'd be useful against later cards, because it's still, the cost is still pretty heavy, but even then your opponent can still back them up, because it's still a front attack, and your opponent can back up any front attack. So I don't think that these kind of back row killers are very good because they're not reliable. Like, first you have to hit the condition, and then you have to hope your opponent can't, get over this power somehow with the backup. So, all in all, I don't think it's that useful. I could maybe see having one of these in, but to take the slot of a level 1 that could be doing something else, I don't know. I don't think it's that playable. So, there's my 2 cents on that. Next up, we got this 0-0 Komachi. When this card is played from your hand to the stage, place the top card of your deck to the waiting room, and if that card is a climax, place this card to stock. So 3,500, nice number. The downside isn't that bad, because, okay, let's say you do hit a climax, you get a stock. So you're not getting nothing out of this card, like, as opposed to other cards that just kill themselves, or maybe rest, because then you don't get the stock for that turn. You can use it the next turn, but like not being able to use the card immediately kind of sucks. At least this one, when you lose it, it goes to stock, so it's still kind of getting a hit in. But it does suck that you can't use it. This card's still, I think, pretty good. It's a nice 3/5, and it's a low enough consequence to merit using this card. So I think it's a pretty decent level 0. Next up, this 2/1 Michelle, 2,500 backup, and when you use this card's backup, you can pay 1 to choose one of these backups, like herself, from the waiting room and return it to your hand. So you're sacrificing 500 power to basically be able to loop this backup. It seems interesting. Being able to pay 2 on backup might be useful, because maybe you just need to go 1 higher to get that last climax into the waiting room before refresh. And it also lets you break even and to keep a backup in your hand. So I can kind of see some usefulness there, but honestly I kind of have to use it to see how good it'll be. So like right now I'm not sure how good this card will be. It seems interesting being able to just grab a backup, but right now I don't think it's that hard to just get a couple backups in your hand. So I don't see it as that big of a deal to need to run this card. So we'll just have to see. And lastly, this 0-0 Akari. During your opponent's turn, when your opponent has 3 characters or fewer, this card gains +1 level and plus 1,500 power. So it's weak on offense, so you're not going to really be able to kill anything unless they, have nothing and need to play something just to get some stock, like a really weak level 0. But the good news is, on your opponent's turn, it's basically unkillable because you can't suicide into it, and 4K is pretty high. Like, your opponent can usually get over 4K by playing, other stuff, like a climax or having cards that work well with assists, but this card does have the potential to stay alive and generate you a good amount of stock. So I think the card's pretty decent because it's just a trooper. It just stays alive and fucking gets you in there. But there are ways around it, so it's not the best, and I'm sure there might be other better level 0s, but we'll just have to wait and see. For now, this seems like a decent option to have. Alright, for the last day, we have 1-0 Ava. Pay 1, send one of your characters on stage to the waiting room. When this card reverses its opponent in battle and this climax, this 2k1, is in your climax border, you may pay the cost. If you do, search your deck for up to 1 Officer Adolf, which is a card coming up, and up to 1 modified character. Show it to your opponent, add it to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. So, first off, 2k1, break even. You have to sack a character for the cost. So, pay 1 minus. Then you search for an Officer Adolf, and on top of that, another modified character. So it's technically a +1, I believe, which is really nice. a 1-0 with a +1, and that's already pretty decent. This 8 off is actually pretty good. So I definitely do think this combo is very, very good, especially if you are running the 8 off. Like, actually, only if you're running the 8 off. If you're not, then there's no point, because you're only breaking even. But yeah, with the 8 off, I think this combo is very worth running, because this 8 off right here, this 3-2, this is the double R, one of the double Rs for yellow. 10k power. When the damage this card deals is cancelled, this card gains 2k power until the end of the turn, and he also has an ability. This can only be activated up to once per turn. During the turn this card is played from your hand to the stage. When the damage dealt by this card is cancelled, place the top card of your deck to the waiting room, and then deal X damage to your opponent, where X is the level of that card +1. So like the Mako from Kill la Kill, these cards are pretty good for game ending, because if you do cancel, you basically get an extra attack in, and being able to, it's already going to be 1 for sure, even if you hit a level 0. And if you hit a level 1, 2, or 3, that's, 2, 3, or 4 damage, which essentially is another attack, no matter which one you hit. So being able to do potentially more attacks and deal more damage consistently in like one turn makes these game-ending cards pretty damn decent. And especially since this combo makes it so that you can get more of him, so it shouldn't be too hard to have multiple copies of him when you're ready to, when you're ready to end the game in that turn. So all in all, I think this whole thing, this combo and this level 3 8 off are really good, and I can definitely see them getting played in Terraformers when the set comes out. Next, we have this 00 Isabella. That was weird. And when this card is played from your hand to stage, it gains 1500 power for the turn. So on play, 4k. That's basically it. I do think Terraformers has better options than this, because I think there are other cards that can hit 4k. So this card isn't that big a deal. It's really only useful with some sets that can't hit 4k, so if they really need the power, they can get that just instant 4k power and kill something that's been causing them trouble. So it's a decent level 0, but I think there are going to be better options for the set. And lastly, we have this 1/1 Milky Homes TD card randomly. Pay 1 event. Draw up to 2 cards, discard 1 card from your hand to the waiting room, and choose one of your characters. If it gains 3k power until the end of the turn, and then place this card to your clock. So you pay 1, clock yourself to break even and give something 3k power. Is it break even? You play this, it's minus, draw 2, yeah, you're breaking even. So, I mean, an event to just do all that is kind of pointless. It's not really doing anything for you. It's just shuffling around your hand a bit and, giving something a nice boost. So, I don't know. It's not worth taking up a card slot for this thing, I think. And it's just a TD card, so you can't really expect much. But yeah, I don't think this card's very useful. And yeah, that's this week. Terraformers is looking pretty solid, I think, already. There's a lot of decent cards this week for a lot of different spots, like level 0, level 1 all got pretty decent stuff. Level 3 is definitely looking sharp with this 8 off and the Akari from last week. So there's definitely some potential with this set. And yeah, look forward to next week, because a couple of next week's leaks are pretty cool as well, which should be out rather soon, because I do plan on catching up after this week. So I'll start bringing them weekly. So definitely look forward to those, and remember to leave anything that I might have missed out, like any value from the cards you think they have that I didn't mention. Feel free to leave them in the comments. And as usual, if you have any questions, also leave them down below. And yeah, until next time.